Stories Night on the Wishing Book. Shivers from Days with Frog and Toad by Arnold Lebel. The night was cold and dark,
Listen to the wind howling in the trees.
said Frog.
What a fine time for a ghost story.
Toad moved deeper into his chair.
Toad,
Asked Frog.
don't you like to be scared? Don't you like to feel the shivers?
I'm not too sure.
Said Toad. Frog made a fresh pot of tea. He sat down and began a story.
When I was small,
Said Frog.
my mother and father and I went out for a picnic. On the way home, we lost our way. My mother was worried. We must get home, she said. We do not want to meet the old dark frog. Who is that? I asked. A terrible ghost, said my father. He comes out at night and eats little frog children for supper.
Toad sipped his tea.
Frog,
He asked.
are you making this up?
Maybe yes, and maybe no.
Said Frog.
My mother and father went to search for a path.
Said Frog.
They told me to wait until I came back. I sat under a tree and waited. The woods became dark. I was afraid. Then I saw two huge eyes. It was the old dark frog. He was standing near me.
Frog,
Asked Toad.
did this really happen?
Maybe it did, and maybe it didn't.
Said Frog. Frog went on with the story.
The dark frog pulled a jump rope out of his pocket. I am not hungry now, said the dark frog. I have eaten too many tasty frog children. But after I jump rope 100 times, I will be hungry again. Then I will eat you. The dark frog tied one end of the rope to a tree. Turn for me, he shouted. I turned the rope for the dark frog. He jumped 20 times. I am beginning to get hungry, said the dark frog. He jumped 50 times. I am getting hungrier, said the dark frog. He jumped 90 times. I am very hungry now, said the dark frog.
What happened then?
Asked Toad.
I had to save my life.
Said Frog.
I ran around and around the tree with the rope. I tied up the old dark frog. He roared and screamed. I ran away fast. I found my mother and father.
Said Frog.
We came safely home.
Frog,
Asked Toad.
was that a true story?
Maybe it was, and maybe it wasn't.
Said Frog. Frog and Toad sat close by the fire. They were scared. The teacups shook in their hands. They were having the shivers. It was a good, warm feeling. Dragons and Giants, From Frog and Toad Together, by Arnold Lobel. Frog and Toad were reading a book together.
The people in this book are brave.
Said Toad.
They fight dragons and giants, and they're never afraid.
I wonder if we're brave.
Said Frog. Frog and Toad looked into a mirror.
We look brave.
Said Frog.
Yes, but are we?
Asked Toad. Frog and Toad went outside.
We can try to climb this mountain.
Said Frog.
That should tell us if we're brave.
Frog went leaping over rocks, and Toad came puffing up behind him. They came to a dark cave. A big snake came out of the cave.
Hello, lunch,
said the snake when he saw Frog and Toad. He opened his wide mouth. Frog and Toad jumped away. Toad was shaking.
I am not afraid,
he cried. They climbed higher, and they heard a loud noise. Many large stones were rolling down the mountain.
It's an avalanche,
cried Toad. Frog and Toad jumped away. Frog was trembling.
I am not afraid,
he shouted. They came to the top of the mountain. The shadow of a hawk fell over them. Frog and Toad jumped under a rock. The hawk flew away.
We are not afraid,
screamed Frog and Toad at the same time. Then they ran down the mountain very fast. They ran past the place where they saw the avalanche. They ran past the place where they saw the snake. They ran all the way to Toad's house.
Frog, I'm glad to have a brave friend like you,
said Toad. He jumped into the bed and pulled the covers over his head.
And I am happy to know a brave person like you, Toad,
said Frog. He jumped into the closet and shut the door. Toad stayed in the bed, and Frog stayed in the closet. They stayed there for a long time, just feeling very brave together. Little Orphan Annie by James Whitcomb Riley. Little orphaned Annies come to our house to stay, and wash the cups and saucers up, and brush the crumbs away, and shoo the chickens off the porch, and dust the hearth, and sweep, and make the fire, and bake the bread, and earn your board and keep. And all us other children, when the supper things is done, we sit around the kitchen fire and has the mostest fun, a-listening to the witch tales that Annie tells about, and the goblins that gets you if you don't watch out. Once there was a little boy wouldn't say his prayers, and when he went to bed at night, away upstairs, his mammy heard him holler, and his daddy heard him bawl, and when they turned the kivers down, he wasn't there at all. And they seeked him in the rafter room, and cubby hole, and press, and seeked him up the chimbley flue, and everywheres, I guess. But all they ever found was this his pants and roundabout, and the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. And one time a little girl would allus laugh and grin and make fun of everyone and all her blood and kin. And onct, when they was company and old folks was there, she mocked 'em and shocked 'em and said she didn't care. And this as she kicked her heels and turned to run and hide, there was two great big black things a-standin' by her side. And they snatched her through the ceiling, for she knowed what she's about, and the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. And little Orphan Annie says, when the blaze is blue, and the lamp wick sputters, and the wind goes woo, and you hear the crickets quit, and the moon is gray, and the lightning bugs and dew is all squenched away, you better mind your parents, and your teachers fond and dear, and cherish them that loves you, and dry the orphan's tear, and help the poor and needy ones it clusters all about, or the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the momraths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome foe he sought, so rested he by the Tumtum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. Oh, frobjous day, callooh, callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the momraths outgrabe.